Every person in your life is behaving exactly as you have instructed them to behave. Every circumstance surrounding you is arranged in precise correspondence with the blueprint you are currently holding in consciousness. Every pattern that repeats, the financial ceiling that will not move, the relationship dynamic that reconstructs itself with different people but identical architecture, the opportunity that arrives and dissolves before it can be seized is not happening to you. It is echoing from you. Ernest Holmes established this as the foundational law of all metaphysical science. The external world is not a separate reality that you navigate. It is a mirror that reflects with complete mechanical fidelity the precise state of your inner environment. The world you see is not the cause of your experience. It is the echo of your consciousness. And an echo does not argue with its source. You have changed everything around you and found that nothing changed. You have removed people who seemed to be the source of the problem, and the problem reappeared in new faces. You have ended relationships that carried a particular pattern of conflict or stagnation, chosen new partners with different names, different histories, different temperaments, and watched the same essential dynamic reconstruct itself from different materials with a precision that defied every rational explanation you attempted to apply to it. You have restructured circumstances, changed careers, changed cities, changed the entire external architecture of your life, and stood in the new arrangement, watching the old structure quietly reassemble itself around you. This is not bad luck. This is not coincidence. This is the echo law operating with perfect, indifferent accuracy. Holmes was uncompromising in his diagnosis of this pattern. He did not attribute it to karma, to fate, to the malice of others, or to the random distribution of misfortune across human lives. He attributed it to a single mechanical cause. The practitioner has been treating the echo as if it were the cause. The echo, the external pattern, the repeating circumstance, the persistent condition, has been receiving all of the attention, all of the effort, all of the corrective energy, while the source of that echo, the inner environment, the consciousness broadcasting the pattern, has been left entirely unchanged. And so the pattern does what any echo must do when its source continues broadcasting. It continues to sound. The external world cannot produce a different echo until the inner environment has been altered at its source. This is not a spiritual opinion. This is the operating law of consciousness, as Holmes identified it. The promise this law delivers is not comfort. It is sovereignty. When you understand, at the level of operative knowledge rather than intellectual agreement, that you are the environment, that the entire external arrangement of your experience is the echo of what you are currently broadcasting in consciousness, you step out of the position of victim entirely and permanently. You are no longer subject to the behavior of people, the movement of markets, the decisions of others, or the arrangement of circumstances. You are their source. This recognition is initially unsettling because it removes every external target for blame and every external source of rescue simultaneously. But what it places in your hands in the moment those props are removed is something of incomparably greater value: the complete and absolute authority to change every condition in your experience by altering the one thing you have always had access to: the source, the inner environment, the broadcast, yourself. In this video, we will establish Holmes's most comprehensive law, the law of environment as consciousness, and construct the operative protocol that allows the practitioner to identify with precision exactly what their current interstate is broadcasting and to alter that broadcast at the source rather than at the reflection. This is not an exercise in positive thinking. It is not a prescription for affirmations layered over unchanged beliefs. We will move through the foundational mechanics of the correspondence principle, establish the precise architecture of how the inner environment produces its external echo, and equip you with the specific tools Holmes developed for correcting that broadcast at the only level where correction is possible. We will move from the frustration of external manipulation into the sovereignty of inner causation. The complete methodology will be developed with the rigor it demands. We will examine the unshakable logic that makes this law as inviolable as the laws governing physical resonance. We will construct, step by precise step, the operative protocol Holmes prescribed for altering the broadcast. We will enter the territory of validation, examining the convergence between Holmes' metaphysical framework and the language of modern field theory, to demonstrate that what Holmes taught was not mysticism awaiting discovery. It was science awaiting the instruments capable of measuring it. Every layer of this teaching builds on the last. Nothing here is decorative. Every element is structural. There is, however, a specific error that Holmes identified, an error so common among experienced practitioners that it functions almost as an occupational hazard of metaphysical study, that is more damaging than any other in the practice of this law. It is a way of responding to the echo that does not neutralize it. It amplifies it. It carries the precise frequency of the pattern being reacted to and broadcasts it at higher power, locking the practitioner into an accelerating loop of the exact experience they are trying to escape. We will isolate that error with complete precision in Part 4. If you have been practicing the principles of Ernest Holmes for years or decades, and the external echo has not substantially changed, the answer to that mystery is almost certainly contained in what follows. If what you are about to receive is now yours, if you are ready to claim your position as the source rather than the recipient of your experience, then make that claim operative immediately. Write the words, "I am the source," in the comments below, not as a response to this video, as a declaration to your own subconscious that you have identified the correct location of all causation and that you are assuming the authorship that has always been yours. Ernest Holmes did not build the science of mind upon the foundation of religious tradition or spiritual intuition alone. He built it upon a single operative principle that he believed to be as precise and as universally applicable as any law in physics: the law of correspondence. Holmes taught that the universal mind, the one intelligence that is the substrate of all that exists, is not divided into separate domains of inner experience and outer reality. It is one continuous, undivided field of consciousness, expressing itself simultaneously at every level of what we perceive as reality. What appears as the external world is not separate from consciousness. It is consciousness made visible. It is the one mind taking form, specific, physical, circumstantial form, in precise correspondence with the dominant patterns held in the subjective or subconscious mind of the individual thinker. The word Holmes used in this context was not chosen loosely. He did not say that the external world is similar to the inner state. He did not say it is influenced by it, shaped by it, or correlated with it in a general and approximate way. He said correspondence, precise, mechanical, mathematical correspondence. The distinction is not semantic. It is foundational. Influence implies a causal relationship that can be disrupted, diluted, or overridden by external factors. Correspondence implies identity of pattern. It implies that the external condition is the inner state expressed in physical form, that the two are not related as cause and effect, but as the same reality, operating at different levels of expression. Every external condition in your experience is the physical expression of an internal state held in the subjective mind, not a reflection of it, not a consequence of it. Its physical expression. This means that every repeating pattern in your experience, every persistent condition, every recurring dynamic, every ceiling that reinstates itself despite your efforts to remove it, is the environmental echo of a pattern in your consciousness. Not a pattern you chose consciously, not a pattern you endorsed or approved, but a pattern that is operative in the subconscious, that is, in the subjective level of the universal mind as it is individualized through your particular point of consciousness, and is therefore expressing itself outward into physical correspondence with the exactness of a law that has no exceptions. Holmes was categorical on this point. The law does not respond to your preferences. It responds to your actual state. It does not distinguish between what you want and what you believe. It corresponds to what you're actually broadcasting at the level where the broadcast originates. It follows from this that the external world contains no independent authority to produce or maintain any condition in your life. This is one of the most radical implications of Holmes's law, and one that requires deliberate consideration before its full operative weight can be felt. The circumstances that appear to be pressing in upon you from outside, the economic conditions, the behavior of other people, the institutional structures, the apparent resources available to you. None of these have the inherent power to determine your experience. They are expressions of the current correspondence. They are echoes. They are the effect side of a causal relationship in which you are always and without exception the cause. The external world is not an independent force operating on you from outside. It is a mirror with no independent face of its own. It shows you exclusively and precisely what you are broadcasting from within. The practical consequence of this understanding is of immediate relevance to anyone who has spent years attempting to improve their experience by improving their external circumstances. If the external world is purely the echo of the inner broadcast, then the strategy of working primarily on the external, the career change, the relationship change, the geographic change, the financial restructuring, is the strategy of adjusting the reflection rather than the source. It may produce temporary relief. A new arrangement of the echo may feel for a period like improvement, but the source has not changed. Therefore, the correspondence law, operating with perfect accuracy, will begin immediately to reconstruct the original pattern within the new external arrangement. Holmes described this not as a spiritual warning, but as a mechanical inevitability. The same inevitability that would cause a new tuning fork, placed in the same position as the old one and struck at the same frequency to produce the same resonance in the chamber. The first cause, in Holmes's language, is always the inner state of consciousness. The thinker is always operating prior to the thought, and the environment, the entire physical, circumstantial, relational environment, is always the effect. First cause operates in consciousness. Effect appears in form. The sequence is invariable, mechanical, and absolute. This is the operating architecture of all experience as Holmes understood it, and it applies not to spiritual practitioners alone, not to those who have studied metaphysics, not to those who have declared their intention to operate this law consciously. It applies to every human being without exception, whether they are aware of it or not. The law does not require knowledge of itself to operate. It operates on the uninstructed and the initiated with equal precision. The only difference knowledge makes is the difference between operating the law consciously and being operated by it in ignorance. Holmes's entire body of work was dedicated to eliminating that ignorance. The mold, another of Holmes's central terms, is the pattern held in consciousness that the universal substance fills, takes the shape of, and expresses as physical reality. Holmes used this analogy with precise intent. A mold is not a suggestion. It is a precise geometric form. When you pour liquid substance into a mold, it does not approximate the shape of the mold. It becomes that shape exactly and completely. The universal substance responding to the pattern held in the subjective mind does not approximate the corresponding physical form. It becomes it exactly and completely. The mold you are currently holding in consciousness, the sum total of your beliefs about yourself, about life, about what is possible for you, about what you deserve, about what is characteristic of your experience. That mold is being filled continuously and completely by the substance of the universe, and its physical expression is the environment you are currently inhabiting. This is why the environment cannot be meaningfully separated from the consciousness that produced it. To say that you are in an environment is, at this level of analysis, a misleading use of language. You're not in your environment the way a person is inside a building, surrounded by it, subject to it, able to be affected by it independently of their inner state. You are your environment in the way that the word in a sentence is its meaning. The two are not separate things in a container relationship. The meaning is what the word is. The environment is what the consciousness is, externalized. Holmes was reaching for this understanding when he said that there is no separation between the thinker and the thing thought. The thinker and the thought, the inner pattern and the outer expression, the broadcast and the echo. These are not two things. They are one reality at two levels of expression. The word treatment in Holmes's operative vocabulary referred to the process of altering the mold, of deliberately working in consciousness to establish a new pattern, a new blueprint, a new identity at the level of the subjective mind, so that the correspondence law would have a new form to fill and express. Treatment was not prayer in the sense of petition to an external power. It was not visualization in the sense of imagining a desired outcome. It was a precise, deliberate, internal alteration of the state of consciousness, the pattern, so that the substance of the universe, following its own law of correspondence, would have no choice but to express a different physical reality. The external world does not change because you asked something outside of you to change it. It changes because the mold that it is filling has been altered, and the substance responds to the new mold with the same mechanical certainty with which it responded to the old one. Understanding the mold as the operative mechanism has a specific implication for how the practitioner approaches the question of their current experience. If your environment is the precise physical expression of your current mold, then your environment, read with sufficient precision and honesty, is an exact description of your mold. This is the insight that transforms external experience from something to be endured or escaped into something of extraordinary diagnostic value. The financial pattern in your experience is telling you with complete accuracy what the financial dimension of your current mold contains. The relational pattern is describing the relational dimension of the mold. The health pattern is expressing the biological dimension. You do not need to guess what your mold currently looks like. You are living in its exact physical expression. The environment is not the problem. It is the most honest self-assessment you will ever receive. Holmes was particularly insistent on the point that this law operates below the level of conscious intention. You may consciously intend abundance, consciously desire health, consciously choose the experience of fulfilling relationship. And yet, the subconscious mold may contain patterns that are in direct contradiction to these conscious intentions. In such cases, the law of correspondence does not resolve the conflict in favor of the conscious desire. It expresses the dominant pattern, the one that is most deeply established at the subconscious level, the one that carries the most emotional charge, the one that has been reinforced by the most repetition and accepted as the most fundamentally true. This is why conscious affirmation without subconscious alteration produces limited results. The mold has not changed. The pattern that is actually operative has not been replaced. The thinker is still generating the original frequency, and the chamber, the world, is still producing the original echo. The implication that follows from this is both sobering and precise. It means that the gap between what you consciously intend and what you're actually experiencing is a direct and accurate measurement of the distance between your conscious desire and your subconscious mold. It means that the environment is not withholding anything from you. It is not failing to respond to your intent. It is responding with complete fidelity to your actual inner state, including the parts of that inner state that you have not yet examined, not yet acknowledged, and not yet altered. Holmes did not present this as a judgment. He presented it as information. The gap is diagnostic, not punitive. It is pointing you to the precise location in consciousness where the operative work needs to happen. That location is not in the external world. It is in the subconscious pattern, the mold that is producing the world you see. The final implication of the correspondence principle is the one that Holmes returned to most consistently throughout his body of work. And it is the one that carries the most direct relevance to anyone who has been practicing these principles without achieving the results they expected. If the external world is purely and completely the echo of the inner environment, then it is impossible by definition for the external world to improve independently of the inner environment. It is impossible for circumstances to rearrange themselves into a more favorable configuration, and for that configuration to persist unless the consciousness broadcasting the pattern has been altered at its source. This is not a limitation. It is the most liberating truth Holmes ever articulated, because it means that your environment is not subject to the economy, to the decisions of others, to historical patterns, to statistical probability, or to any other external force. It is subject exclusively to your consciousness. And your consciousness is the one thing in all of reality that is completely available to you, completely within your authority, and completely capable of being altered from within. The law of correspondence, fully understood, reveals that you have never been at the mercy of your environment. You have been its author. The question Holmes asked was never whether this was true. It was always the same question. Will you now author it consciously? To understand precisely why the law of correspondence operates with mathematical certainty, why it is not a spiritual aspiration but a mechanical inevitability, Holmes employed a specific analogy that deserves to be examined with the care it demands. Consider a tuning fork. A tuning fork is a physical instrument designed to produce a single, precise frequency when struck. It does not suggest a frequency. It does not approximate a frequency. It generates with physical exactness one specific pattern of vibration, one that can be measured, predicted, and reproduced with complete consistency. Now place that tuning fork inside a resonant chamber, a room, a hall, any enclosed space with surfaces capable of vibration. When the fork is struck and the frequency it generates enters the chamber does not evaluate the frequency. It does not deliberate. It does not have the capacity to produce a different resonance than the one the fork is generating. The surfaces of the chamber begin to vibrate at the fork's exact frequency. The resonance is mechanical, immediate, and absolute. Holmes taught that consciousness operates as the tuning fork in this analogy, and the external world operates as the resonant chamber. This is not a decorative metaphor. Holmes was describing what he understood to be the precise operative relationship between inner state and outer experience. The inner environment, the specific combination of belief, identity, emotional baseline, habitual thought, and subconscious assumption that constitutes the current state of a given consciousness, generates a frequency. That frequency enters the chamber of the external world. The chamber responds. It has no other function. It cannot produce a frequency different from the one being generated by the fork. It cannot decide to resonate at a more favorable frequency than the one it is receiving. It cannot decline to resonate. It resonates. The resonance is the external experience. The external experience is the resonance. They are one event at two levels. This logic has a specific and verifiable consequence that every experienced practitioner of New Thought principles will recognize from their own history. The person who carries a fundamental belief that they are not safe in prosperity, that abundance at a certain scale invites loss, attack, or collapse, is generating a frequency that includes embedded within it the precise pattern of limitation and reversal. The chamber of their external experience vibrates at that frequency. Opportunities arise and dissolve. Financial ceilings reinstall themselves after each apparent breakthrough. Success reaches a specific threshold and then, with an almost choreographed precision, reverses. The observer who examines only the external chain of events will identify different causes each time: market conditions, the behavior of partners, timing, bad luck. But the frequency analyst, which is what Holmes trained his students to be, will look at the fork, not the chamber. The fork has been generating the same frequency through every configuration. The chamber has been doing exactly what chambers do. It follows that the only operative point of intervention in this system is the fork, not the chamber. Every other approach, every attempt to silence the echo by confronting it directly, to prevent the resonance by physically treating the chamber walls, is not only ineffective, but is categorically misapplied effort. You cannot alter the behavior of the resonant chamber by working on the chamber while the fork continues to generate the original frequency. You can make temporary changes. You can, for a period, suppress or redirect the resonance in specific sections of the chamber. But the frequency is continuous. The fork does not stop generating it because you have physically altered one section of the wall. The resonance will reestablish itself wherever the chamber offers a surface to vibrate. Holmes's prescription was absolutely clear. Put down the tools you are using on the chamber walls. Pick up the one tool that matters. Alter the fork. How does one alter the fork? This is the question Holmes's entire operative system was designed to answer, and the answer begins with a precision that is itself diagnostic. The fork is not altered by changing the thoughts you think consciously. This is where the majority of practitioners who work sincerely with the principles of correspondence have been applying their effort at the wrong depth. You are not thinking your way to a new frequency. Conscious thought is the sound produced by the fork. It is the output of the instrument's current state, not the instrument state itself. Attempting to produce a different sound by forcing new thoughts while the tuning fork of your subconscious identity remains unchanged is the equivalent of placing your hand over the tines of the fork after it has been struck to suppress the current tone, then removing your hand and expecting a different frequency to emerge. The tines have not changed. The frequency will return the moment the suppression is removed. The fork is altered at the level of identity, at the level of what you have accepted as true about yourself, at the deepest operative layer of consciousness. Holmes called this the subjective mind, the recording medium, the deep soil, the accumulated pattern of acceptance that functions as the actual generator of the frequency. To alter the fork is to alter what has been accepted as true at the subjective level, to replace the deep identity statement, the subconscious self-concept, the emotional baseline around which all habitual thought organizes itself. This is not an instant process in most cases, but it is an absolutely reliable one. When the subjective mind has genuinely accepted a new pattern, when it has received a new imprint at the depth where imprints become operative, the fork changes. The frequency changes. The chamber has no choice but to respond. The resonance reorganizes. The external world shifts. The echo changes because the source has changed. There is no other mechanism by which it can change. The tuning fork analogy also illuminates one of the most important and least discussed aspects of Holmes's law: the relationship between emotional state and broadcast frequency. The frequency generated by a tuning fork is determined by its physical construction, by the precise dimensions and material properties of the instrument. Similarly, the frequency generated by a given consciousness is determined by its emotional and belief architecture, by the specific quality of feeling that accompanies the dominant subconscious pattern. Holmes was emphatic that intellectual acceptance of a new idea without the corresponding emotional state does not alter the fork. The emotional quality of the inner experience is not a side effect of the belief. It is a constituent of the frequency. A belief that you are prosperous, held without any felt sense of the reality of that prosperity, is not a complete frequency alteration. It is a change in the conscious label placed on the fork, while the emotional resonance of the fork remains unchanged. The chamber responds to the emotional resonance, not the conscious label. This is why Holmes insisted on what he called realization, the felt certainty that the new pattern is already true, as the operative standard for effective treatment. Holmes was also precise about the relationship between persistence of frequency and persistence of external pattern. The chamber does not reorganize instantly when the fork changes frequency. There is a lag, a period during which the old resonance is still reverberating from surfaces that are only beginning to respond to the new frequency. This lag is one of the primary sources of discouragement for practitioners who have genuinely altered their inner broadcast and then, observing that the external world has not yet reorganized to match the new frequency, conclude that the law has failed to operate. Holmes was unequivocal. The law has not failed. The chamber is responding. The reverberation of the old frequency is diminishing. The new resonance is building. The external expression of the new frequency is approaching. The only question is whether the practitioner will hold the new frequency through the period of apparent lag, or whether they will react to the old echo, still reverberating, and revert to the frequency that produced it. Holmes identified this choice: hold the new broadcast through the transition or abandon it in reaction to the lagging echo, as the single most critical decision point in the entire operative process. We will examine the full consequence of that choice with precise diagnostic detail in Part 4. The logic of the resonant chamber also dissolves one of the most persistent and damaging illusions in the experience of those who have worked with these principles: the illusion that other people have independent power to determine the echo of your consciousness. Holmes was categorical on this point. Other people do not have access to the generating frequency of your consciousness. They are not operating your fork. They are surfaces in your resonant chamber. Their behavior toward you, what appears to be their independent choices, their reactions, their treatment of you, is part of the resonance your frequency is producing in your chamber. This does not mean that other people are not real or that their experiences are determined by your consciousness alone. It means that your experience of them, the way they appear in your life, the dynamic that develops between you, the pattern that characterizes the relationship, is a resonance. It is what your frequency produces in them, in your context, in your experience. Change your frequency, and the resonance changes, consistently, predictably, mechanically. The most powerful implication of the resonant chamber model is also the most radical departure from ordinary thinking about human experience. And it is this: the chamber does not generate the resonance independently of the fork. It does not have its own source of sound. It cannot produce an experience that the fork has not generated. This means that no condition in the external environment, no economic crisis, no health crisis, no pattern of loss or limitation or conflict has the inherent power to sustain itself in your experience if the inner frequency that corresponds to it has been genuinely altered. The condition persists because the frequency persists. Remove the frequency, alter the fork at the level of subconscious identity, and the condition has lost its source. Holmes did not claim this as a mystical promise. He stated it as the precise mechanical consequence of the law of correspondence. The chamber has no independent mandate to sustain any particular resonance. It is completely, totally, and exclusively responsive to the fork. This is the unshakable logic of the echo law. The external world is the most faithfully obedient instrument in the known universe. It has never once failed to echo what it was given. The only question is what you will now give it. 2.2 continues, it is worth pausing at this point to consider the full weight of what Holmes is proposing, because the intellect tends to accept this principle in a general and abstract form, while quietly exempting certain specific conditions from its jurisdiction. You may nod at the idea that consciousness produces experience in broad strokes, while simultaneously holding in reserve the conviction that your particular financial situation or your particular health condition or the particular behavior of a particular person in your life is an exception, that it is genuinely, causally, independently external. Holmes would not grant that exemption. He could not grant it without dismantling the law itself. The law of correspondence does not operate on general tendencies and broad categories. It operates with mathematical precision on every specific detail. The law applies not to your experience in aggregate, it applies to every single element of it. The financial ceiling is not an exception. The health condition is not an exception. The behavior of that specific person is not an exception. Each is an echo. Each has a source. Each will change when the source changes, without exception. This totality of application is what distinguishes Holmes's law of correspondence from lesser formulations of the mind-body-environment relationship. Many frameworks acknowledge that mental state influences physical experience in a general way. Holmes was not teaching influence. He was teaching identity of cause. He was teaching that the external condition is not influenced by the inner state. It is the inner state, expressed in physical form. The difference in practical terms is enormous. If the inner state only influences the outer, then there are other causal factors at work, other forces that can be negotiated with, lobbied, appealed to. The strategy of working on the external makes some sense if the external has partial causal autonomy. But if the outer is the inner expressed, then working on the outer without working on the inner is not a partial strategy. It is no strategy at all. It is activity mistaken for action, motion mistaken for movement, effort applied where no lever exists. Holmes cleared all of this away and pointed to the one lever that actually moves anything: the inner environment, the source, the fork. The final verification that this logic provides is personal and immediate. You do not need a laboratory to test it. You are living in the laboratory. Your current environment is the data set. Read it with the eyes of someone who accepts provisionally and in the spirit of scientific inquiry that every element of it is an echo, a precise, faithful correspondence of an inner state currently operative in your subjective mind. Apply that lens consistently. Ask of each persistent pattern what inner state would naturally produce exactly this as its physical correspondence. Ask it without self-judgment, without the instinct to protect particular beliefs from examination, with the cold and careful eye of a diagnostician who has no investment in any particular finding except the truth. Holmes promised, with the certainty of someone who had tested this law exhaustively across thousands of individual cases, that the inquiry, conducted honestly, will always find the source, because the echo is always perfect. The echo never lies, and the source, once found, can be changed. This is the logic. This is the law. This is the science Ernest Holmes spent his life decoding, not for comfort, but for sovereignty. Before a single element of the operative protocol can be effectively applied, there is a shift that must occur that precedes all technique, all method, all procedure, and without which every method will fail at the level of implementation, regardless of how precisely it is understood intellectually. Holmes named this shift the recognition of authorship. It is the specific felt operative realization that you are not a recipient of your environment. You are its author, not its co-author, not its partial author, subject to the independent causal power of external forces that can override your inner state. Its complete, total, and exclusive author, operating through the medium of consciousness and the law of correspondence, without exception and without qualification. This recognition must be established as the starting foundation before any corrective work in consciousness can take root, because all work in consciousness begins from a position, a stance, and the position from which you approach the inner work determines whether that work reaches the operative depth where the mold actually resides. The distinction between knowing this and recognizing it is not a spiritual nicety. It is a mechanical necessity. You may have known for years, intellectually, academically, as a proposition you could state accurately and even explain to others, that consciousness produces experience. Holmes is not asking for that kind of knowledge. He is asking for the kind of recognition that a person has when they understand, not as an abstract principle, but as an immediate and personal fact, that the specific condition in front of them right now, the specific financial reality, the specific relational dynamic, the specific health situation, is something they have authored, not chosen consciously, not intended deliberately in every detail, but authored through the current state of their inner broadcast with the same mechanical certainty that the tuning fork authors the resonance of the chamber. This is a different quality of knowing. It lands differently. It produces a different response, and it opens a different door. Consider what happens in consciousness when a person is in the position of recipient, when they experience themselves as being affected by an external environment that has its own causal power over them. The orientation is outward. The attention goes to the external condition, assessing it, evaluating its severity, calculating possible responses to it. The emotional state produced by this orientation is one of exposure, of being subject to something that can determine the quality of your experience independently of what you hold in consciousness. This orientation, however sincerely held, is itself a broadcast. Holmes identified it as one of the most powerful and most destructive broadcasts available to a practitioner, because it contains at its core the message that the external world is more powerful than the inner state. That effect can override cause. And the resonant chamber receiving that broadcast produces a corresponding experience, an external world that confirms its own authority over you. The echo of the victim consciousness is more victimhood. The pattern deepens. The sense of being subject to the environment intensifies. The walls of the chamber appear to close in, not because they have any inherent power to do so, but because the fork is generating the precise frequency that corresponds to walls closing in. The recognition of authorship dissolves this loop at its generative point. When you shift from recipient to author, when the stance in consciousness moves from "this is happening to me" to "this is echoing from me," the broadcast changes immediately and fundamentally. The orientation shifts inward. The attention moves to the source rather than the reflection. The emotional state that corresponds to authorship is not victimhood and not even confidence in the conventional sense. It is something closer to what Holmes called settled realization. The quiet, unargued, bone-deep recognition that the authority over your experience resides in you, that it has always resided in you, and that no external condition has any power to alter this fact. That recognition, held consistently, is itself a new frequency. The chamber begins to respond to it, not because the recognition is positive, and positive frequencies produce positive experiences in some vague, sympathetic way, but because the recognition is accurate. It corresponds to what is actually true at the level of first cause. When your broadcast corresponds to what is actually true at the level of law, the law expresses that truth as physical reality. This is not a reward. It is mechanics. Holmes was also precise about the discomfort that accompanies the genuine assumption of authorship, and it deserves honest acknowledgement here, because the discomfort is real and it is meaningful. When you fully accept that you are the author of your current environment, that the financial limitation, the relational pattern, the health condition, the repeating circumstance, all of it is echoing from you, from your current broadcast, from your current mold, you lose access to the entire architecture of external explanation that human beings use to manage the pain of difficult experience. The economy is no longer responsible. The person who wronged you is no longer responsible. The historical events that shaped your early life are no longer responsible. Not because they did not influence your current mold, but because they are not currently operating as an independent causal force. The only operating cause is the present state of your inner environment. Every external explanation for your condition is, at the level of law, a description of an echo, not a cause. When you accept this fully, there is initially a quality of exposure, a nakedness, that is unlike anything produced by any other spiritual teaching. Holmes did not try to soften this. He met it directly. The discomfort is the feeling of the last external prop being removed. What remains when it is removed is not vulnerability. It is the complete, unobstructed, sovereign authority of the thinker. The recognition of authorship also has a specific practical implication for the relationship between the practitioner and the patterns they are working to change. When you are in recipient mode, the pattern is the enemy, something to be overcome, escaped from, or endured until it resolves. The emotional energy directed at the pattern is adversarial, And that adversarial energy is itself a broadcast, sustaining the pattern by continuously directing charged attention toward it. When you shift to author mode, the pattern becomes information. It is not the enemy. It is the most precise and honest feedback mechanism available to you. It is telling you, with complete accuracy and zero distortion, what your current broadcast contains. Holmes taught his practitioners to develop what he called a diagnostic relationship with their environment, to read it the way a physician reads vital signs, without emotional attachment to the findings, with the cool and focused interest of someone whose only concern is accurate identification of the source, because accurate identification of the source is the prerequisite to effective alteration of it. The pattern cannot be your enemy if you are its author. It is your creation, and creators do not fight their creations. They revise them at the source. The shift from recipient to author is not achieved through an act of will in the conventional sense. You cannot force yourself to feel like an author while your emotional body is organized around the experience of being a recipient. The shift occurs through something Holmes described as an internal argument one, a process in which the law is applied to the specific case with enough precision and enough persistence that the subjective mind gradually, then suddenly, accepts the new premise as true. It is a process of presenting the evidence of the law to your own inner tribunal with the quality of a skilled attorney presenting a case not to impress anyone, but to establish beyond reasonable doubt the actual operative facts. The fact being established is this: I am the source of this echo. I am the environment. My inner state is the first cause of this condition, and my inner state is available to me, and therefore this condition is available to me. When the subjective mind accepts this, not as a possibility but as an operative certainty, the shift has occurred. The author has taken their seat. The work can now begin. The specific psychological signature of this shift is recognizable, and Holmes described it in terms that allow for self-assessment. Before the shift, the dominant emotional relationship with difficult external conditions is something in the family of reactive emotions: anxiety, resentment, resignation, fear, frustration. These emotions all share a structural feature. They are directed outward at the condition, and they all contain embedded within them the implicit message that the condition is the cause and the emotional state is the response. After the shift, the dominant quality is different. It is something closer to what Holmes called treatment consciousness, a settled, inward-directed focus that is neither excited nor distressed, that regards the external condition with something approaching equanimity, not because the condition is welcome, but because it has been correctly classified. It is an echo. It is not the cause. The cause is here, available, workable. The condition is simply information about what still needs to be addressed at the source. This quality of consciousness, settled inward, diagnostic rather than reactive, is not just the emotional correlate of authorship. It is itself a broadcast, and the chamber responds to it immediately. The final element of establishing authorship before the operative protocol can succeed is what Holmes called the commitment to first cause. This is the practitioner's internal agreement, made not to a teacher, not to a teaching, not to a community, but to the law itself, that they will work exclusively at the level of cause from this point forward, that they will not invest their primary corrective energy in the external arrangement of effects, that they will not evaluate the success or failure of their inner work primarily by the immediate response of the external world, that they will hold the new inner broadcast with the settled certainty of someone who understands that the law will express it not because they have been promised a reward, but because correspondence is what the law does. This commitment is not dogma. It is the adoption of the correct operative strategy, based on an accurate understanding of the causal architecture. You do not work at the level of cause because you have been told to. You work at the level of cause because you have understood with the precision of a systems engineer where the actual lever is. And once you have found the lever, working anywhere else is not an alternative. It is simply a waste of effort. The assumption of authorship is, in its fullness, the assumption of an entirely new relationship with reality, one in which the external world ceases to be a domain of independent forces and becomes instead a continuous and highly accurate mirror of your own inner state. Every condition in your experience becomes readable. Every pattern becomes diagnostic. Every echo becomes a precise message about the source. This is not a comfortable relationship with reality in the way that comfort is ordinarily understood. It is a sovereign one, and sovereignty, the complete authority over one's own experience that the law of correspondence places in the hands of the thinker, is not comfortable in the sense that it requires nothing of you. It is sovereign in the sense that it requires everything of you and delivers in return the only thing worth having, the complete and inviolable freedom to be the conscious author of your own life. Holmes said that the world is your mirror. He did not mean this as poetry. He meant it as the most practically precise description of the causal architecture of human experience that he had found in decades of study, experimentation, and direct observation. The mirror shows exactly what stands before it. It does not editorialize. It does not withhold. It does not distort. And it does not change what it shows until what stands before it has changed. You are what stands before the mirror. You have always been what stands before the mirror. From this moment forward, the only relevant question is, what will you now choose to be? The operative protocol that Holmes derived from the law of correspondence has 3 discrete steps, each building upon the last with the sequential dependency of a precision mechanism in which no step can be bypassed or approximated without compromising the integrity of the whole. This is not a flexible framework to be interpreted loosely. It is a sequence with an internal logic, a logic that derives from the nature of the law itself. The steps are: identify the echo with forensic precision, identify and alter the source at the correct depth, and hold the new broadcast with complete stability through the period of transition. Each step requires examination. The first step is the echo audit. Select one persistent pattern in your external experience. Not a general area of dissatisfaction, but a single, specific, recurring pattern that has appeared in multiple external configurations across time. A financial ceiling that reinstates itself after each apparent breakthrough. A relational dynamic in which a specific quality of conflict, abandonment, or withholding appears in successive relationships with different people. A professional pattern in which advancement reaches a particular threshold and then halts or reverses. A health condition that returns despite successful treatment. The pattern must be described with complete precision, not in emotional language, but in structural language. Not, "Things always go wrong for me financially," but rather, "Each time my income reaches approximately a certain level, a specific category of expense or loss appears that returns my financial position to its previous state." Precision matters here. The echo is precise. Your description of it must be equally precise because it is your map to the source. Once the echo has been described with structural precision, the diagnostic question can be applied. What internal broadcast would naturally produce exactly this external pattern as its precise correspondence? This question must be approached with the discipline of a forensic analyst and the honesty of someone who has decided that accurate diagnosis is more important than the protection of any particular self-concept. The echo is not random. It is not the product of bad luck, external conspiracy, or statistical misfortune. It is the precise physical expression of a specific pattern held in the subconscious mind. Work backward from the echo to its source. If a person consistently builds to a certain threshold of success and then, at precisely that threshold, makes a decision or encounters a circumstance that reverses their position, what belief held below the level of conscious awareness would produce exactly that pattern? A belief that success at that level is unsafe. A conviction that visibility leads to loss. An identity statement that positions the person as someone who approaches but does not fully inhabit a certain quality of life. These are not abstract psychological hypotheses. They are precise descriptions of the mold, and the mold is what you are looking for. The echo audit, conducted with sufficient honesty and precision, will typically reveal one of a small number of fundamental source patterns that Holmes identified as the most common generators of persistent negative echoes. These include the deep conviction of unworthiness, which produces echoes of rejection, loss, and limitation at every level of experience. The belief in fundamental insecurity, which produces echoes of financial instability, relational inconsistency, and health vulnerability. The identity of struggle, in which the subconscious self-concept includes the premise that achievement requires suffering, which produces echoes in which every advancement is accompanied by a corresponding cost. And the conviction of conditional deserving, in which the subconscious holds the belief that a certain quality of life is available to some people, but not fundamentally to this particular person. None of these patterns are consciously endorsed by the practitioners who carry them. All of them are the product of deep imprinting, experiences from the formative years of life that were accepted by the subjective mind as descriptions of reality and have been broadcasting their frequency faithfully ever since. The echo audit is the process of surfacing them, bringing them from the operative subconscious level into the light of conscious awareness where they can be examined and altered. The second step of the protocol is source alteration, and this is the step where the majority of practitioners who have studied these principles have been working at the wrong depth. The instruction is not to replace one thought with another thought. Holmes was explicit about this distinction and returned to it repeatedly throughout his body of work. Thought is the output of the current subconscious state. You can change the thoughts you consciously hold for a period, You can affirm a new truth, visualize a new condition, speak a new decree, while the subconscious pattern that is generating the thoughts remains entirely unchanged. The fork has not changed. The new conscious thoughts are being grafted onto the surface of a pattern whose roots run at a different level entirely. They will not alter the broadcast. They will not change the echo. They are, in Holmes' precise language, effect, attempting to operate as cause. Source alteration, correctly understood, is a change of state, a change in the felt, accepted, emotionally inhabited sense of who you are and what is true. Holmes called the target of this alteration the subjective identity, the deep self-concept, the subconscious sense of self that functions as the actual generator of the frequency. To alter the source is to alter this identity, to replace the operative subconscious premise with a new one that is incompatible with the old pattern and will therefore generate an incompatible echo. The mechanism Holmes used for this was spiritual mind treatment, a form of internal argument conducted with precision and persistence, in which the practitioner applies the law of first cause to the specific case, establishing in consciousness the truth of the new identity with such clarity and such felt certainty that the subjective mind accepts it as operative fact. The standard for success in this process is not effort. It is not repetition. It is realization, the felt sense that the new truth has been accepted at the depth where acceptance becomes broadcast. Holmes described this realization using language that is worth examining with precision. He said that effective treatment produces a feeling of it is done, a settled, complete, inwardly certain sense that the new pattern is established in consciousness, and that its expression in the external world is therefore not a hope, but an inevitability. In the same way that the correspondence of the tuning fork's frequency to the chamber's resonance is not a hope, but a mechanical certainty. This feeling of it is done is not manufactured enthusiasm. It is not the emotional forcing of positivity over a foundation of unchanged subconscious belief. It is the genuine inner recognition that at the level of first cause and at the level of the mold, the pattern, the subjective identity, the alteration has occurred. This recognition may take a single session of deep treatment, or it may take many repetitions across many days, depending on the depth and duration of the original imprint. But it has a specific internal signature that the practitioner will recognize when it arrives, and that signature is the operative signal that the second step has been completed. The third step, and Holmes may have considered it the most demanding of the three, is what he called maintaining the new broadcast through the transition. This step requires a specific understanding of the relationship between the alteration of the inner broadcast and the reorganization of the external echo. The reorganization is not instantaneous. The external world does not snap immediately into correspondence with the new inner frequency the moment the subjective identity is altered. There is a period, its duration variable depending on the nature and depth of the pattern being replaced, during which the new frequency is building its correspondence in the external world, while the old echo is still reverberating from the previous state. Holmes described this period as the most critical interval in the entire operative process, because it is during this period that the practitioner is most vulnerable to what Holmes called the reaction that reinverts the broadcast. The external world during this transition period will present evidence that appears to contradict the new inner broadcast. The financial condition will not immediately improve. The relational pattern may not immediately shift. The health condition may continue for a time at its previous level. This apparent contradiction is not evidence that the treatment has failed. It is the lagging reverberation of the old frequency in the chamber, the echo of the previous broadcast that has not yet fully dissipated. If the practitioner reacts to this lagging echo with the emotional response appropriate to the old pattern, anxiety about the financial condition, resentment about the relational dynamic, fear about the health situation, that reaction is a broadcast. And it is a broadcast at the precise frequency of the pattern being replaced, generated with the amplified energy of emotional reaction. The old frequency has been reinverted into the chamber. The transition is interrupted. The new resonance which was building is partially or fully dismantled. The process must begin again. Holmes' instruction for navigating the transition period was not to ignore the external evidence, not to pretend the lagging echo is not present, but to maintain the inner broadcast with the calm certainty of someone who understands the mechanics of what is happening. The lag is expected. The old resonance must diminish before the new one can fully establish itself. The practitioner's task during this period is to continue generating the new frequency, to maintain the new identity, the new emotional baseline, the new operative assumption, without being moved by the external world's apparent failure to have yet caught up. This is not passive. It is one of the most active and demanding inner disciplines Holmes taught. It requires the practitioner to consciously choose in every moment where the old echo presents itself to respond from the new frequency rather than from the old reaction. Each such choice is a reinforcement of the new broadcast. Each such choice brings the external expression of the new frequency closer. The three steps together constitute what Holmes called the complete circuit of first cause. Identify the echo with forensic precision, alter the source at the correct depth, and hold the new broadcast through the period of correspondence lag with the unshakable certainty of someone who understands the law. This is not an approach that tolerates shortcuts. Each step is load-bearing. The echo audit without the source alteration produces clarity without change. The source alteration without the echo audit may target the wrong pattern. The first two steps without the third may be dismantled in the transition by a reaction that reinverts the old broadcast. The complete circuit requires all three steps, executed with precision and held with the settled patience of a practitioner who has moved from the position of recipient to the position of author, who knows where the lever is, who has engaged it, and who has the disciplined understanding to stand behind their action and allow the law to complete its correspondence. Holmes concluded his instruction on the operative protocol with a statement that deserves to be received as both a practical directive and a philosophical resting point. He said that the practitioner who understands this law and applies it with precision does not work to change the world. They work to change themselves. And the world, the entire external arrangement of their experience, changes as a mechanical consequence of that inner change, because the world has no other mandate than to echo what the inner environment broadcasts. The world is not the problem to be solved. The world is the solution's announcement. It will announce the new solution the moment the new solution has been established at the level of first cause, not a moment sooner, not a moment later, with the exact timing and the exact form that corresponds to the exact state of the inner broadcast. This is the protocol. This is the mechanism. This is the law. In Part 4, we arrive at the territory Holmes identified as the most critically underaddressed dimension of the correspondence law in the experience of serious practitioners. The territory of error, of misapplication, of the specific mistakes that do not merely fail to produce the desired echo, but actively deepen and amplify the undesired one. Holmes spoke about these errors not with condemnation, but with the diagnostic precision of a physician who has identified a pattern of treatment error so common and so consequential that naming it clearly is itself a form of clinical care. These are not errors of laziness or ignorance alone. They are errors that educated, sincere, long-practicing students of metaphysics make consistently, because they are errors that feel intuitively correct in the moment of making them. That is what makes them so precisely damaging. The first error, and Holmes identified it as the most destructive single mistake a practitioner of the echo law can make, is the reaction loop. To understand this error with the precision it demands, return to the mechanics established in Part 2. The external echo is the physical expression of the current inner broadcast. It is, at every moment, the precise correspondence of the frequency the subjective mind is currently generating. Now, introduce a practitioner who has studied these principles and is working sincerely and with genuine effort to alter their inner broadcast. They have conducted the echo audit. They have identified the source pattern. They have done their treatment work, and then they look up from their inner work and see the external echo, the financial limitation, the relational pattern, the health condition, still present, still unresolved, still delivering its familiar quality of difficulty and constriction. They have an emotional response to what they see. The financial difficulty produces anxiety. The relational pattern produces resentment or grief. The health condition produces fear. These responses feel not only natural, but inevitable. They are the normal human response to difficult external conditions. But Holmes identified them with complete mechanical precision as the most damaging possible response available to the practitioner in that moment. Here is the precise mechanical consequence of the reaction as Holmes understood it. Every emotional reaction to the external echo is itself a broadcast, one that carries the precise frequency of the pattern being reacted to. Anxiety about financial limitation is a broadcast at the frequency of financial limitation. Resentment about the relational pattern is a broadcast at the frequency of the relational pattern. Fear about the health condition is a broadcast at the frequency of the health condition. The reaction does not merely maintain the old broadcast, it amplifies it. Emotional charge is the power supply of the broadcast. An emotionally charged reaction to an undesired pattern is a signal transmitted at higher wattage than the steady underlying belief that originally produced the pattern. The chamber receives this amplified signal. The resonance of the undesired pattern deepens. The echo grows louder. The external expression of the pattern intensifies or persists with renewed force. The practitioner, observing the intensification, reacts again. The signal is amplified again. the echo deepens again. This is the reaction loop. This is not a theoretical risk. This is the precise mechanism by which sincere practitioners of metaphysical law have spent years, sometimes decades, amplifying the very patterns they were dedicated to dissolving through the involuntary broadcast of their reactions to those patterns. Holmes was clear that the reaction loop is self-sustaining once established. The more the practitioner reacts, the stronger the echo becomes. The stronger the echo, the more provocative the stimulus for reaction. The more provocative the stimulus, the more powerful the reaction. The loop is self-reinforcing and self-accelerating. The practitioner who is caught in this loop does not experience it as their own creation. They experience it as external persecution, as evidence that the law is not working for them, that their situation is uniquely intractable, that there is something fundamentally broken in their capacity to apply the principles they understand. Holmes identified all of these interpretations as inaccurate. The law is working precisely. It is working with exact fidelity. It is echoing the dominant broadcast with perfect accuracy. The dominant broadcast has been the frequency of the reaction, not the frequency of the treatment. And the reaction has been louder. The antidote to the reaction loop is not the suppression of the emotional response. Holmes was equally clear about this. Suppression, the deliberate forcing down of the emotional reaction through willpower, does not alter the subconscious broadcast. It conceals the reaction from the conscious awareness while leaving it fully operative at the subconscious level, where it continues to generate its frequency without the practitioner's awareness. The suppressed reaction is still a broadcast. It is still an echo amplifier. The distinction Holmes drew was not between feeling the reaction and suppressing it. It was between identifying with the reaction and observing it. The practitioner who can see the external condition, notice the emotional response arising, and consciously decline to broadcast it, who can hold the new inner frequency with sufficient stability that the reactive emotion is witnessed but not transmitted, is operating the law correctly. This is what Holmes meant by treatment consciousness, not the absence of emotional response, but the deliberate choice made from the sovereign position of the author, not to allow the emotional response to become the next transmission. The second major error Holmes identified is the external fix, the strategy of attempting to correct the echo by manipulating the external environment without first altering the inner broadcast. This error has already been introduced in the analogy of trying to silence a speaker by pushing the sound waves back into the cone, but its manifestation in practice deserves a more specific examination because it is an error that wears many disguises and consistently presents itself as productive action rather than misdirected effort. The person who ends a relationship because its dynamic is painful and immediately begins a new one without examining and altering the inner broadcast that produced the first relationship's dynamic is applying the external fix. The person who takes out a loan to resolve a financial pattern that is the echo of a subconscious identity organized around scarcity without altering that identity is applying the external fix. The person who pursues a new medical intervention for a condition whose source includes a component in consciousness without addressing that component is applying the external fix. In each case, the external action may produce temporary relief, But Holmes was categorical. Without alteration of the source broadcast, the echo will reconstitute itself within the new external arrangement with the same essential pattern, because the pattern has not lost its source. Holmes was not dismissive of external action. He was precise about its proper relationship to inner work. External action, taken from an altered inner state, from a genuinely changed broadcast, is not the external fix. It is the natural and appropriate expression of the new frequency taking form in the world. Holmes distinguished between action that flows from a changed consciousness and action that is undertaken as a substitute for changing consciousness. The first is part of the law's expression. The second is the external fix. The diagnostic question for any external action the practitioner is considering is not, will this action improve the external condition, but rather, has the inner broadcast been altered so that this action is an expression of the new frequency? Or is this action an attempt to change the echo without changing the source? The answer to that question determines whether the action is operative or merely reactive, whether it is first cause flowing into expression or effect attempting to rearrange itself while the cause remains unchanged. Holmes concluded his analysis of these errors with a statement that is both diagnostically precise and deeply instructive for anyone who has spent years applying metaphysical principles without achieving the expected results. He said that the practitioner who has been consistent in their study and earnest in their application, but who has not achieved proportional results, should not conclude that the law is unreliable or that they are uniquely resistant to it. They should ask, with complete honesty, two questions. First, have I been reacting emotionally to the external echo, and has that reaction been a stronger and more consistent broadcast than my deliberate inner work? Second, have I been working primarily at the level of external manipulation, changing circumstances, relationships, environments, without addressing the inner broadcast that produced those circumstances? If the answer to either question is yes, Holmes said, then the law has not failed. It has been operating with its usual precision. It has been echoing the dominant broadcast. The task is not to work harder or to believe more intensely. The task is to stop amplifying the undesired echo through reaction. Stop treating the echo as if it were the cause and return to the only level where the law can be operated effectively: the inner environment, the source. Holmes's instruction on the completeness of the correspondence principle, what might be called the master's final clarification, removes the last remaining exception that the subjective mind tends to construct as a refuge from full accountability. Most practitioners who have worked with these principles for a serious period will accept the correspondence law in the abstract and across broad categories of experience. But the subjective mind, with great sophistication, will typically identify one or two specific conditions in the practitioner's experience that are held apart from the law's jurisdiction, conditions whose external causes seem so obvious, so external, so independently real that the correspondence logic appears not to apply. Holmes's master clarification is directed precisely at these held exceptions, and it is uncompromising. There are no exceptions to the law of correspondence. There is not a single condition in your experience that originated from outside of you. There is not a single condition in your experience that is not the echo of a current inner broadcast. And there is not a single condition in your experience that cannot be changed by altering that broadcast, without exception. Holmes presented this completeness not as a spiritual absolute to be taken on faith, but as the logical consequence of the law's own nature. If the correspondence is mechanical and universal, if it operates the way the resonant chamber operates, with complete responsiveness to the fork's frequency and zero independent contribution of its own, then it cannot selectively fail to apply to certain conditions. A law that has exceptions is not a law. It is a tendency, a general principle, a statistical regularity. Holmes was not teaching tendencies. He was teaching law. And the test he applied to any apparent exception was always the same. Have you examined this condition with the same forensic rigor you would apply to any other echo? Have you asked, with genuine honesty and without the emotional investment in this condition being externally caused, what inner broadcast would produce exactly this condition as its correspondence? If you have conducted that inquiry with full honesty and precision, Holmes was confident, based on decades of direct clinical observation, that the source will be found, because the echo is always perfect. It has no capacity to produce a pattern that does not correspond precisely to something at the level of the inner broadcast. The master clarification also has a specific application to the question of other people. This is the area where the correspondence principle produces the most resistance in practitioners, because it appears to implicate other people as instruments of a causal process they are unaware of. And this raises both philosophical and ethical questions. Holmes's response to this resistance was careful and precise. He was not suggesting that other people are automatons whose behavior is entirely determined by your inner state, or that other people's inner lives are without independent significance. What Holmes was teaching is something more specific and more immediately operative. Your experience of other people, the quality, the pattern, the essential dynamics of how they appear in your life, is the correspondence of your inner broadcast. You do not attract other people in some cosmic sorting process. You experience them through the medium of your own consciousness, and that consciousness determines which aspects of their range of possible behaviors are activated in your experience, which qualities are drawn to the surface of the relationship, and which pattern the relationship assumes. Change the inner broadcast, and the experience of the same person can change, sometimes dramatically, sometimes with a completeness that appears inexplicable by any external logic, because the medium through which you are experiencing them has changed. Holmes framed the complete sovereignty that this law delivers in terms that bear careful consideration. He said, "You are not in your environment. You are your environment." Every condition that surrounds you is a precise, faithful, mechanical expression of the consciousness you are currently holding. There is not a single exception to this law, and there is not a single condition in your experience that originated from outside of you. This means there is not a single condition in your experience that cannot be changed from inside of you. The same law that produces your current environment will produce a different one the moment the consciousness that is its source is altered. This statement is not an encouragement. It is a description of mechanics. The sovereignty Holmes is pointing to is not a metaphysical aspiration. It is the operational reality of every human being, whether or not they have recognized or claimed it. The law does not reserve this sovereignty for the initiated. It delivers it to everyone, operating through every consciousness without exception, producing the precise echo of whatever inner environment is currently broadcasting. The only question is whether you will broadcast consciously. This is Holmes's ultimate instruction to the practitioner who is ready to operate the law at its highest level of precision. Stop working on the echo. Stop negotiating with the reflection. Stop investing your primary corrective energy at the level of effect. Return to first cause. Return to the inner environment. Identify the mold currently operative in your subjective mind with complete honesty. Alter that mold at the level of consciousness, not through conscious thought substitution, but through the deep, felt, emotionally inhabited realization that the new pattern is true, that the new identity is real, that the new broadcast is your actual, present operative state. Hold that broadcast with the settled certainty of someone who has understood the law from its foundation and trusts its operation completely. Do not react to the lagging echo. Do not revert to the old broadcast under the pressure of the transition period. Hold the frequency. The chamber is responding. It always responds. It has never once failed to respond. The echo is changing. You are the source. You have always been the source. The only change required, the only change that has ever been required, is the conscious assumption of an authorship that has always been yours. Holmes' law of the inner environment as the source of all external experience is not a doctrine that exists in isolation within the tradition of metaphysical science. It converges with a precision that rewards careful examination with some of the most significant conceptual developments in 20th and 21st century physics, specifically with the framework of field theory as it has evolved from classical to quantum applications, and with the more controversial but rigorously documented territory of morphic resonance, as described by biologist Rupert Sheldrake. The convergence is not accidental. Holmes believed, and stated explicitly in his more technical writings, that metaphysical law and physical law are not two separate systems, but two languages describing the same underlying architecture of reality. An examination of the field concept as modern physics understands it will demonstrate the precision of that belief. In classical field theory, as developed by Faraday and Maxwell, and subsequently extended through the relativistic and quantum frameworks, a field is understood as a fundamental physical reality, not a thing in the ordinary sense, but a condition of space itself. A gravitational field, an electromagnetic field, a quantum field. None of these are objects that occupy space. They are conditions that space is in across an extended region that determine what can occur there and how matter and energy within the field must behave. The field does not contain the events that occur within it as a box contains objects. It governs the range of possibilities from which specific events can emerge. Within a gravitational field of a given strength and configuration, certain things can happen and others cannot. The field does not cause specific events in the simple billiard ball sense of one object striking another. It determines the possibility space, the range of outcomes from which the actual events are drawn. Every point within the field is conditioned by the field's values, and every event at every point reflects those values. Holmes's inner environment, understood precisely in these terms, is a field. It is a condition of consciousness distributed across the entirety of one's experience, rather than a point-by-point condition of physical space. But the structural relationship is identical. The inner environment, the current state of the subjective mind, the sum of operative beliefs and identity patterns and emotional baselines, does not cause specific external events in the simple sense of one thing pushing another. It governs the possibility space of one's experience. It determines which events, relationships, and circumstances can occur within the range of one's experience by establishing the field conditions from which those specific occurrences are drawn. The practitioner, with a deeply held subconscious conviction of scarcity, is not experiencing a direct causal event in which the belief pushes money away. They are inhabiting a consciousness field in which the conditions governing what can occur financially are organized around scarcity. A field in which abundance, while possible in the abstract, does not fall within the range of outcomes that the current field conditions make accessible. Change the field conditions, alter the inner environment, and the range of accessible outcomes undergoes a corresponding reorganization. Different events become possible. Different relationships become available. Different circumstances can occur. The field shift has not targeted specific outcomes. It has reorganized the entire possibility space from which outcomes are drawn. The quantum dimension of this field understanding adds a layer of precision that Holmes could not have expressed in the quantum vocabulary of his era, but that maps with striking exactness onto his operative framework. In quantum mechanics, the wave function of a system describes a superposition of all possible states available to that system, a probability distribution across the full range of outcomes that could, in principle, occur. Observation, measurement, interaction with the system collapses this superposition into one specific outcome. The system is no longer in a state of potential. It is in one actual state. The measurement has selected from the possibility space. Holmes's consciousness, acting as the inner environment, operates in precise analogy to this measurement function. The external world, conceived as a field of possibilities, contains in principle a vast range of potential events and conditions. The current state of the practitioner's consciousness is continuously selecting from this range, not as an act of conscious choice, but as the mechanical consequence of the field conditions the inner environment establishes. Change the inner environment and the selection function changes. Different possibilities are collapsed into actuality. Different experiences are drawn from the field. The physics does not describe something different from what Holmes taught. It describes the same selecting, collapsing, field-determining mechanism in the language of measurement and probability, rather than the language of mold and correspondence. Rupert Sheldrake's theory of morphic resonance extends this field logic in a direction particularly relevant to Holmes's emphasis on repeating patterns and the transmission of those patterns across time. Sheldrake proposed that biological and psychological systems are organized by morphic fields, field patterns that carry the accumulated form and behavior of all previous instances of that system, not through genetic transmission alone, but through a kind of field resonance that transcends physical causation in the ordinary sense. In practical terms, This means that a pattern, once established and repeated, becomes easier to repeat, not because of any mechanical connection between the instances, but because the morphic field is now organized around that pattern, reinforcing it across time and across independent instances. Holmes did not use the language of morphic resonance, but the operative principle is structurally identical to what he taught about the subconscious pattern. A pattern established and repeated in consciousness, especially one charged with emotional repetition across years or decades, does not merely persist. It deepens its groove. It becomes the default architecture of one's field. It recruits new external circumstances into its familiar form with increasing efficiency. This is why the practitioner who has held a limiting pattern for 20 years finds it more persistent than one held for 2. The field has been organized around it for longer. The correction, therefore, is not simply to introduce a new thought. It is to introduce a new pattern with sufficient frequency, clarity, and emotional conviction to reorganize the field itself around a new dominant architecture. The implications of this field model extend further still into the domain of quantum mechanics and specifically into the principle of quantum coherence. In quantum systems, coherence refers to the state in which the wave functions of individual particles are aligned, synchronized in phase, such that they behave not as separate independent particles, but as a unified whole. The coherent system has properties and capabilities that no individual particle within it possesses separately. When coherence is achieved, the system becomes qualitatively different from a mere collection of its components. Holmes' description of the inner environment operating as a unified field of consciousness maps precisely onto this principle. When the beliefs, identity statements, emotional baseline, and habitual assumptions of a practitioner are coherent, when they are aligned in phase around a single dominant pattern, the consciousness operates as a unified, potent causal system. When they are incoherent, when the affirmation contradicts the underlying belief, when the desire conflicts with the identity, when the intellectual acceptance of the law wars with the emotional conviction that it will not work for this specific person, the field is fragmented. The individual components cancel each other out. The external echo produced by an incoherent inner field is precisely what most practitioners experience: a chaotic, contradictory environment that seems to offer glimpses of the desired condition before withdrawing them, because the field producing it is itself a system of glimpse and withdrawal. Coherence is not a spiritual virtue. It is a technical requirement of the law. David Bohm's principle of the implicate order provides perhaps the most structurally precise parallel to Holmes's foundational architecture. Bohm proposed that the observable material world, what he called the explicate order, is not the fundamental level of reality. It is the surface expression, the unfolded projection of a deeper enfolded reality that he termed the implicate order. In the implicate order, everything that appears as separate in the explicate world and separate objects, separate events, separate people, separate moments in time, is enfolded together in a unified whole. What we observe as the external world is not the ground of reality. It is reality's surface expression, continuously unfolding from a deeper, implicate ground. Holmes's architecture of inner cause and outer effect is not an approximation of this principle. It is the same principle stated from a different angle. The inner environment, consciousness, belief, identity, the dominant pattern of mind, is the implicate level. The external world is the explicate expression of it. When Bohm writes that the explicate order is continuously enfolded back into the implicate and re-expressed from it in a dynamic process of enfolding and unfolding. He is describing, in the language of theoretical physics, exactly what Holmes described as the continuous and automatic correspondence between inner state and outer condition. The external world is not a fixed stage on which you perform. It is a continuous projection from the inner ground. Alter the ground. The projection is altered without further effort. What these converging scientific frameworks reveal, field theory, morphic resonance, quantum coherence, the implicate order, is that Holmes's law of correspondence is not a spiritual hypothesis waiting to be confirmed by science. It is a structural principle that science, arriving from an entirely different direction, keeps describing from different angles. The outer world is the expression of the inner field. The echo is the mechanical product of the source. This is not a belief system. It is the architecture of causation itself, stated in the vocabulary of physics, confirmed in the vocabulary of metaphysics, operative whether the practitioner understands it or not. The question Holmes placed before every serious student of his work was never whether this law was true. The law does not require belief to operate. It requires only a practitioner who is willing to stop treating its effects as independent causes and to begin working at the level where all causation actually resides. The final dimension of this scientific validation that must be addressed is the domain of neuroscience, specifically the principle of neural entrainment and the documented relationship between habitual mental states and the structural architecture of the brain itself. Neuroscience has established, through decades of research into neuroplasticity, that the brain is not a fixed structure delivering a fixed experience of reality. It is a dynamic, continuously reorganizing system that models the external world according to its own internal patterns, and that those internal patterns are themselves shaped by the habitual mental and emotional states the individual maintains over time. The brain does not perceive reality as it is. It perceives reality as it has been trained to expect it to be, filtering incoming sensory data through the lens of its existing neural architecture, suppressing information that does not conform to its dominant patterns, and amplifying information that does. Holmes's law of correspondence, in neurological terms, means this: the consciousness that habitually holds a pattern of limitation is not merely thinking limiting thoughts about a neutral world. It is constructing, through the physical architecture of its own neural pathways, a perceptual apparatus that will continue to see limitation even when the external conditions have changed. The echo is being regenerated not only through subjective belief, but through the objective structure of the perceiving instrument itself. This is why the correction Holmes prescribed was never merely intellectual agreement with a new idea. It was the sustained, emotionally engaged, repeated installation of a new pattern at the level of consciousness, deep enough and consistent enough to restructure the neural architecture that determines what the practitioner is capable of perceiving. Change the instrument. The world it reports will change with it. There is a documented account that illustrates the operative precision of Holmes's echo law, with a clarity that no abstract principle can match. It concerns a woman who had built and lost 3 separate businesses across a span of 12 years. The 3 ventures were, by every external measure, entirely unrelated. The first was a retail clothing operation in a mid-sized American city. The second was a consulting practice serving mid-level corporate clients. The third was a real estate investment partnership. Different industries, different structures, different partners, different sequences of events leading to the final collapse of each. To any external analyst reviewing the 3 cases independently, there would have been no obvious connection. The failures would have appeared as a series of unfortunate coincidences, the accumulated result of market forces, bad timing, unreliable partners, and a streak of ill fortune that, statistically at least, was bound to correct itself. Holmes examined no market data and reviewed no financial records. He examined the consciousness. He conducted 3 extended sessions with the woman, not to understand the businesses, but to understand the architecture of the mind that had built and lost them. What he found beneath the surface diversity of 3 completely different failures was a single, precise, repeating pattern. In each venture, the woman had built with competence and genuine momentum to a specific threshold, a point at which the business had achieved a certain level of visibility, a certain level of public presence, a certain scale of financial exposure. And at precisely that threshold, not before it and not significantly after it, she had, in each case, made a pivotal decision that initiated the unraveling. The decisions were different in their surface content. In the first case, it was a decision to overextend inventory. In the second, a decision to take on a partner whose instability she had recognized but dismissed. In the third, a decision to proceed with a purchase despite clear contractual irregularities that she had identified and then ignored. The surface decisions were different. Their function was identical. Each one introduced at the precise moment of threshold visibility a flaw that would grow until it collapsed the structure. Holmes did not need to analyze the business decisions. He needed to find the internal broadcast that would naturally produce exactly this pattern as its correspondence, a pattern of building to a specific threshold and then, at that threshold, engineering collapse. He found it in the third session. Embedded in the woman's history was a precise early installation, a childhood experience in which her first significant public success, a performance, a recognition, a moment of visible achievement, had been followed immediately by a severe and painful loss. The installation had been precise. The subconscious had recorded, with the fidelity of a court stenographer, the following pattern. Visibility at this scale produces loss, and for 12 years, across 3 completely different industries, with 3 completely different sets of partners and circumstances, the subconscious had been producing the correspondence of that recorded pattern with perfect, undeviating, mechanical accuracy. The echo had been faithfully reproducing its source. The source had never been examined. It had never even been suspected as a source because the surface events of each failure were so different from each other that no repeating pattern was visible at the external level. The pattern was only visible at the level where it actually resided, in the internal broadcast. Holmes's work with the woman over the subsequent months was not directed at the 4th business venture she was planning. He did not advise her on its structure, its partners, or its strategy. He worked exclusively on the source, on the dissolution of the original imprinted belief, and the installation of a new foundational pattern. That visibility is the natural and safe expression of genuine capability, and that the threshold at which this woman operated was not a danger point, but a launch pad. He worked at the level of identity, not thought management, not positive thinking about business outcomes, but a fundamental restructuring of the self-concept that would naturally produce a different correspondence in the external field. The work was methodical. It was repeated. It was conducted with the precision of a practitioner who understood that the subconscious does not update on the basis of a single instruction, but reorganizes around a new pattern only when that pattern has been held with sufficient consistency and emotional conviction to displace the previously dominant architecture. The fourth venture built past the threshold. For the first time in 12 years, the woman did not engineer her own collapse at the point of maximum visibility. The business not only survived the threshold, but expanded beyond it. Holmes made no comment about the external events. He made one observation about the mechanism. The echo had changed because the source had changed. The external world had done precisely what it always does and can only do. It had reflected with complete mechanical fidelity the altered state of the inner environment. Nothing in the external world had been manipulated. No partners had been vetted differently. No strategic decisions had been made with exceptional wisdom unavailable to the previous ventures. The only variable that had changed was the internal broadcast. And because that was the only variable that had ever mattered, because the external world contains no independent authority to produce any condition, only the mechanical function of reflecting the condition produced by the inner environment. It was the only variable that needed to change. The echo followed. It had no other option. The law Ernest Holmes described is simultaneously the most demanding truth in the architecture of metaphysical science and the most liberating. It is demanding for a reason that must be stated without mitigation. It removes every external explanation for every condition in your experience. Every one. There is no person who caused your limitation, no circumstance powerful enough to override your broadcast, no stroke of misfortune that arrived from outside the field of your own consciousness. Holmes was not gentle about this. He did not offer the student the comfort of a partial responsibility. The idea that you co-create your experience alongside external forces, that you are one variable among many. He stated the law as absolute. The inner environment is the cause. The external world is the effect. The effect has no independent existence. It cannot originate anything. It can only reflect. If you find this demanding, you are reading it correctly. It demands that you accept, without reservation, the complete authorship of every condition in your life. That is a demand with no exemptions. And yet, it is this same completeness that makes the law the most liberating truth available to the human practitioner. Because if you are the complete cause of your current experience, then you are equally the complete cause of any future experience you choose to establish. There is no external permission to obtain. There is no external force to negotiate with. There is no authority outside of yourself that holds the key to the conditions you desire, because those conditions are not produced by any external authority. They are produced by the same mechanism that is currently producing your experience right now, your inner environment. The cause of your limitation and the cause of your freedom are the same cause. They are both your consciousness. The only difference between them is the specific broadcast that consciousness is currently generating. Change the broadcast. That is the entire instruction. The external world will do what it has always done and can only do: follow. It follows, therefore, that there is nothing to overcome in the external world. This is a statement that must be allowed to land fully before its implications can be grasped. Nothing in your external experience, no financial pattern, no relational dynamic, no professional ceiling, no health condition that does not have an independent physical cause requiring physical treatment, has any authority to persist beyond the moment at which its source in consciousness has been genuinely altered. Holmes described this with the language of mold and substance. Consciousness provides the mold, and the universal substance fills it without question, without qualification, and without delay. The moment the mold changes, the substance begins to take the new form. There is no argument. There is no resistance from the outside world. There is only the echo responding to its source with mechanical fidelity. This means that the practitioner who has spent years or decades in frustrated effort against external conditions has been directing their energy at precisely the wrong level. The external world is not the adversary. It is the mirror. You do not fight a mirror. You change the face that is standing before it. Consequently, the question that replaces every external question you have ever asked about your circumstances is this: what am I currently broadcasting? Not what should I do about this condition, not how do I change this person or this situation, not how do I obtain what I have not yet obtained, but what is the state of my inner environment that is currently producing this as its exact and faithful correspondence? That question is the beginning of mastery. It is the shift from passenger to author, from one who navigates an environment that appears independent to one who recognizes themselves as the environment's originating cause. Holmes identified this shift as the single most consequential transition available to a practitioner, more consequential than any specific technique, any particular affirmation, any method of treatment. The methods are instruments. This recognition is the hand that wields them. Without it, the instruments produce inconsistent and temporary results. With it, every operative tool in Holmes's entire system becomes immediately and precisely effective, because it is being wielded by someone who has correctly located the source of all experience. The law Holmes describes, taken in its full statement, is this: you are the environment, not a participant in the environment, not a shaper of the environment, not someone who influences the environment from inside it. You are it. Every condition that surrounds you is the precise, faithful, mechanical expression of what you are currently broadcasting from the level of your deepest consciousness. Your identity, your habitual emotional state, your settled assumptions about yourself and about what is possible for you. The external world is the echo of this broadcast, produced with the accuracy of a law that does not know how to be wrong, does not know how to approximate, does not know how to produce anything other than the exact correspondence of its source. You have always been the environment. the only change available to you, and the only change that will ever produce a genuinely different echo, is the conscious assumption of an authorship that has always been yours, not the acquisition of a new power, the recognition of the one you have never stopped exercising. Stop negotiating with your reflection. This instruction must be understood in its full operative weight. Every time you have argued with an external condition, every time you have confronted a person who seemed to be the source of your problem, strategized against a circumstance that appeared to be blocking your progress, or attempted to force the external world into a configuration that matched your desires. You were standing in front of a mirror and pushing against the glass. The glass offered resistance. You redoubled your effort. The resistance increased in proportion to your effort, and you interpreted that increasing resistance as evidence that the external world was powerful and opposed to you, when in fact it was evidence of nothing more than the law operating with its characteristic precision. The harder you push against the echo, the more energy you feed into the frequency that produced it. Stop trying to silence the echo by confronting it directly. The echo is not the problem. The echo is the report. It is the most accurate and honest report you will ever receive about the state of your inner environment, because it is not filtered by ego, not distorted by wishful thinking, not softened by the polite fictions you tell yourself about what you believe. The external world shows you exactly what you are broadcasting, not what you wish you were broadcasting, not what you intellectually affirm you believe, but what is actually operatively dominant in your consciousness right now. If the report is painful, the instinct is to look away from it, to dispute it, to find external explanations for it. Holmes's instruction is the opposite. Look at it with complete honesty. Read it as a precise diagnostic instrument. The pattern you see in your external experience is the most accurate map of your internal landscape that exists. Use it as such. Stop waiting for the external world to change before you change the state of consciousness that is producing it. This is perhaps the most subtle and destructive error in the entire field of metaphysical practice, the conditional approach. The practitioner who says, in effect, I will believe in abundance when my finances improve, or I will feel the emotional state of the desired condition when the external evidence supports it, has inverted the law entirely. They have placed the cause at the level of the effect and the effect at the level of the cause. They are waiting for the echo to change before they change the source. The echo cannot change first. By definition, by law, by the irreversible architecture of correspondence, the source changes first. Always, without exception, the new state of consciousness is not the reward for the external change. It is the cause of it. Establish it now. Establish it in the complete absence of external evidence. Establish it precisely because the external evidence has not yet changed. That is not an act of delusion. That is an act of causation. You are not surrounded by your circumstances. You generated them. Every relationship in your experience is a relationship you have attracted and shaped through the frequency you are broadcasting. Not consciously, not intentionally in most cases, but automatically and mechanically, through the correspondence law that governs all experience without exception. The person who seems to consistently encounter unreliable partners is broadcasting a frequency that the law is resolving into unreliable partners. The person who consistently finds that opportunity, arrives, and dissolves before it can be seized is broadcasting a frequency in which arrival and dissolution are the dominant pattern. Not because of any deficiency of character, and not because external forces have conspired against them, because the law has no agenda. It does not reward virtue or punish failure. It simply and always produces the external correspondence of the internal broadcast. Change the frequency. The relationships change, the opportunities change, not because the world has become more favorable, because the world, as your echo, has simply adjusted to report a different source. Every condition you have ever wanted, the financial abundance that should have arrived by now at this stage of your life, the health that ought to reflect the understanding you have accumulated, the relationships of depth and reciprocity that you have earned through decades of genuine development, the freedom to operate at the scale your capacity has always deserved. None of it is being withheld from you by any external force. There is no gatekeeper. There is no cosmic committee evaluating your worthiness and deferring its verdict. The law does not withhold. It corresponds. If the desired condition has not yet appeared in your external experience, the precise and sufficient explanation is that the inner environment has not yet been established at the frequency that would produce it as its natural correspondence. This is not a judgment. It is a diagnosis. And unlike a judgment, a diagnosis has a correction. The correction is always the same. Alter the source. The echo has no choice but to follow. Every pattern that persists in your experience is persisting for one reason only. You have not yet altered its source in consciousness. The financial ceiling that has held for years is not held in place by the economy, by your industry, by your age, or by the decisions of other people. It is held in place by the precise and specific inner broadcast that corresponds to a ceiling at that level. The relationship dynamic that reconstructs itself every time you believe you have escaped it is not a coincidence of character types that you happen to attract. It is the same broadcast producing the same echo through different external materials. The health condition that persists despite your efforts, where no physical cause demands its continuation, is persisting because the inner environment that corresponds to that condition has not yet been genuinely and completely altered at its source. Holmes did not offer exceptions to this law. He did not identify categories of experience that were exempt from correspondence. The law is complete, its application is complete, and therefore its correction is complete. Alter the source. The correspondence will shift, not because you have improved the external conditions, but because the law that produces those conditions from the inside out has now been given a different instruction. Change the source. That is the entire instruction. It is the beginning, the middle, and the end of everything Holmes taught. Not change your thoughts about the external world. Not improve your circumstances and then align your consciousness with the improvement. Not affirm your way toward a slightly more optimistic interpretation of an unchanged external reality. Change the source. Change the state of consciousness, the identity, the emotional baseline, the settled operative assumption about what is true for you, and hold that change with the completeness and the settled certainty of a practitioner who has understood the law, not merely accepted it as an interesting idea. The echo has no choice but to follow. It never has had a choice. It is not capable of choice. It is capable only of reflection, and it will reflect with perfect and immediate fidelity whatever the source is broadcasting. You are the source. You have always been the source. You are the environment. The echo is waiting, as all echoes wait, for the source to change. Change it now. The instruction Holmes left is not a philosophy to be admired from a distance. It is a protocol to be executed with precision. And the first execution of that protocol begins here, in this moment, before this video ends. There is a pattern in your life. You know exactly which one. You have known it for years. It may have changed its costume across different circumstances, worn different faces, expressed itself through different industries or relationships or financial configurations, but its essential architecture has remained unchanged through all of those variations. That pattern is not your fate. It is not your nature. It is not evidence of a deficiency in your character or a limitation in your capacity. It is an echo. It is a precise and faithful mechanical report of a broadcast that has been operating at a level below the one at which you have been doing your work. And the fact that you can now name it as an echo, the fact that you can now look at it with the calm, diagnostic clarity of a practitioner who understands the law, means that the relationship between you and that pattern has already changed in a fundamental way. You are no longer inside the echo, believing it is the cause. You are standing at the source, recognizing your authorship. The echo identification challenge is this. Write down, with complete precision and no self-protection, the single most persistent pattern in your external experience. Not the most painful one necessarily, though they are often the same. The most persistent one, the one that has shown up in multiple configurations, in multiple circumstances, through multiple attempts at resolution, and has remained structurally intact through all of them. Write it with the specificity of a diagnostician, not the vagueness of someone who is still hoping the external world is responsible for it. Name the echo. Then, beneath it, write the one-sentence description of the internal broadcast that would naturally produce exactly that echo as its mechanical correspondence. Not what you wish were true about your inner state. What the echo is reporting must be true about it. What belief? What identity statement? What settled emotional assumption about yourself or about what is possible for you would generate exactly this external pattern as its inevitable and precise reflection? Write that. One sentence. Stated not as a suspicion, but as a diagnosis. You do not need to solve it today. Holmes was never in the business of promising instant transformation to those who had not yet done the foundational work of honest identification. What he insisted upon was this: you cannot correct a broadcast you have not yet accurately identified. The correction comes after the identification. The identification is the first act of sovereignty. The moment you can name with honest precision the source of the echo you have been living inside, you have made the single most consequential shift available to a practitioner. The shift from someone who is subject to a pattern to someone who can see the pattern from outside it. That seeing is not passive. It is the first operative act. It is the beginning of the correction. It is the moment at which the practitioner stops being the passenger inside the echo and begins to function as the author of the broadcast. That moment is available to you right now. Use it. The law does not require your belief in order to operate. It requires only your accurate application. And the first accurate application of Holmes's echo law is the one you are about to make. The honest identification of the source of the pattern you have been living with. This is not self-criticism. It is not an indictment of your intelligence or your dedication or the sincerity of your years of practice. It is the precise diagnostic work that every master practitioner Holmes ever documented as having achieved genuine and lasting results had in common. They were willing to look honestly at the echo, trace it backward to its source with complete intellectual courage, and name what they found there without flinching. That naming is not the end of the process, but it is, without exception, in every documented case, the beginning of the correction. The echo will tell you exactly what the source is broadcasting. Trust the echo. Read it accurately. Name the source. Begin there. Before you leave this space, there is one action that will seal this understanding more permanently than any note you could take or any technique you could memorize. Think of one moment in your life, one specific, concrete moment, where the echo law was already operating through you, for you, or against you, before you had the language to name what was happening. A moment when the external world was, with mechanical precision, reflecting the state of your inner environment back to you in the form of a specific event, a specific encounter, a specific opportunity that arrived, or a specific door that closed. Write that moment in the comments below. Not a general observation, a specific moment, and beneath it, write the one-sentence description of the internal broadcast that you can now see was producing it as its exact correspondence. Not for this channel, for yourself. Because the mind that can identify the operation of the law in the past has just acquired the most critical capacity in all of metaphysical practice. The capacity to recognize the law in operation in the present, which is the only place it can be consciously directed. That recognition is not the end of your initiation. It is its precise and operative beginning.